The rain pounds against the windows of the Grand Meridian Hotel in New York, a steady roar that drowns out the chatter of the elite gathered inside. Nathan Hayes stands near the edge of the ballroom, his sharp gray suit pristine despite the storm outside. At 34, he's the youngest CEO of Horizon Media, a man whose name echoes through boardrooms and headlines. But tonight, his dark eyes are distant, his jaw tight. He's here out of duty, not desire, surrounded by people who want his money or his approval. He sips his whiskey, the burn in his throat a faint distraction from the emptiness he's carried since his last love crumbled years ago. Across the room, Ava Sullivan moves quietly, a tray of champagne flutes balanced in her hands. At 27, she's a shadow among the glittering crowd, her black uniform blending into the background. Her auburn hair is pinned up, a few strands escaping to frame her face. Her hazel eyes catch the light, bright and alive, though no one seems to notice. She's a poet at heart, scribbling verses on napkins during breaks, but here she's just another server, invisible to the powerful guests. She adjusts the tray, her fingers trembling slightly from the long shift, and glances out at the rain. It's her kind of night, the kind that inspires words she'll never share. The evening drags on, the air thick with perfume and ambition. Nathan checks his watch, ready to escape. He steps toward the hallway, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. Ava, meanwhile, weaves through the crowd, heading to the kitchen with her empty tray. The storm outside grows wilder, thunder rumbling like a warning. Then it happens. A sharp crack splits the air, and the lights flicker out. Darkness swallows the room. Gasps ripple through the guests, glasses clinking as people stumble. Nathan freezes, his phone buzzing in his pocket. A message from Isabella Reed, his ex, flashes on the screen. "Meet me by the hall, we need to talk." He sighs, assuming she's up to her old games, and moves forward blindly. Ava, caught mid-step, stumbles as someone bumps her. Her tray clatters to the floor, and she mutters an apology no one hears. She edges toward the hallway, hoping to find a corner to wait out the blackout. The rain seeps through a broken window nearby, dampening her uniform, her hair sticking to her neck. She's almost there when a strong hand grips her arm. Before she can react, lips crash against hers, firm and urgent. Time stops. Her breath catches, her heart slamming against her ribs. The kiss is electric, unexpected, pulling her into a warmth she's never known. Then the lights snap back on. Nathan pulls back, blinking in the sudden brightness. He stares at the woman before him, not Isabella, but someone else entirely. Ava stands there, her lips parted, her cheeks flushed. Her damp hair clings to her face, her eyes wide with shock. She's beautiful, radiant, like a figure from a dream he didn't know he had. He opens his mouth to speak, but no words come. Ava steps back, her hand flying to her lips, then turns and flees down the hall. Nathan watches her go, rooted to the spot. His mind spins, replaying the softness of her mouth, the way she trembled against him. Inside, something shifts. He spent years building walls around his heart, convinced love was a luxury he couldn't afford. But that kiss, that fleeting moment in the dark, cracks those walls wide open. He thinks to himself, "I've never felt anything so powerful. Her lips, they weren't Isabella's, but they've burned themselves into me. I don't even know her name, and already I'm lost." The rain outside seems to echo his pulse, relentless and alive. He doesn't move, not yet. But he knows one thing for certain. He has to find her again. The Grand Meridian Hotel hums with life the next evening, but Nathan Hayes barely notices. He stands at the bar, his fingers tapping the polished wood, his mind miles away from the clinking glasses and murmured conversations. 24 hours have passed since the blackout, since that kiss, and he hasn't slept. Her face haunts him, the stranger with auburn hair and hazel eyes, her lips soft and fleeting against his. He replays it endlessly. The way she froze, the rain on her skin, the shock in her gaze when the lights returned. He'd stood there like a fool as she ran, too stunned to chase her. Now, regret gnaws at him. He thinks, I let her slip away. I don't even know who she is, but I feel her everywhere. He'd returned tonight with a flimsy excuse, telling himself he needed to check on the event's aftermath for Horizon Media. It's a lie. He's here for her. His eyes scan the room, searching every face, every shadow. Servers move through the crowd, but none of them are her. He clenches his jaw, frustration building. He's a man who controls boardrooms, who bends the world to his will, yet he's powerless against this, he mutters to himself. One kiss, Nathan, one mistake, and now you're unraveling. He finishes his drink, the burn steadying him, and decides to ask. He flags down a waiter, a young man with a nervous smile. The girl from last night, Nathan says, keeping his voice even. Auburn hair, hazel eyes. She dropped a tray during the blackout. Who is she? The waiter hesitates, then nods. That's Ava. Ava Sullivan. She's on shift tonight, probably in the back. Nathan's pulse quickens. Ava Sullivan. The name fits her, delicate yet strong like the woman he can't shake. He thanks the waiter and moves toward the kitchen, his steps purposeful. He doesn't know what he'll say, only that he needs to see her again. The hallway is quieter, the storm outside a dull roar. He pushes through a swinging door and stops. There she is. Ava stands near a counter, wiping down a tray, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. Her hair is pinned up again, a few strands curling against her neck. She doesn't see him at first, her focus on her task, her lips moving slightly as if she's whispering to herself. Nathan watches, captivated. She's not like the polished women he knows, all sharp edges and calculated charm. She's real, unguarded, and it draws him in. He clears his throat, and she looks up. Her eyes widen, recognition flashing across her face. She steps back, clutching the tray like a shield. You, she says, her voice soft but firm. What are you doing here? Nathan freezes, words tangling in his throat. He's used to commanding rooms, but her gaze disarms him. I wanted to apologize, he says finally. Last night, the blackout. I thought you were someone else. I didn't mean to. He trails off, unsure how to finish. Ava's cheeks flush, and she looks away, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. It's fine, she says quickly. Mistakes happen. I'm sure you didn't mean to make me blush like that. Her lips curve into a small, shy smile, and it hits him like a punch. That smile, tentative and warm, is more dangerous than the kiss. He steps closer, drawn by something he can't name. I'm Nathan, he says, offering his hand. She hesitates, then takes it, her fingers cool against his. Ava, she replies, though he already knows. Her touch lingers for a moment, and he feels it again, that spark from the dark. She pulls back, glancing at the clock. I should get back to work, she says, but her eyes linger on him, curious despite herself. Wait, he says, surprising himself. Can I see you again? Not here, I mean, somewhere else. Ava blinks, caught off guard. Why? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. He doesn't have an answer, not one he can say aloud. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because I've spent years feeling nothing and you woke me up in 1 second. Instead, he says, I don't know, I just do. She studies him, her gaze piercing, then nods slowly. Maybe, she says and turns back to her tray. Nathan watches her go, his chest tight. He thinks, she's giving me a chance and I don't deserve it, but I'll take it. I have to. Over the next week, Nathan becomes a regular at the hotel. He sits at the bar, orders coffee he doesn't drink, and waits for glimpses of her. Ava notices, of course. She catches his eye across the room, offers a quick smile before disappearing into the kitchen. They talk in stolen moments, brief exchanges that leave him wanting more. One night, she lingers after bringing him a drink. You're here a lot, she says, tilting her head. Don't you have a company to run? He chuckles, the sound foreign to him. I do, he says, but I'd rather be here. She raises an eyebrow, teasing. Careful, Nathan, people might think you're stalking me. He grins, leaning closer. Maybe I am. Their banter grows, light but charged. She tells him about the rain, how it soothes her. He admits he's always hated it, until now. Each word pulls him deeper, her voice a melody he can't unhear. One evening, he finds a napkin on his table after she leaves, scribbled with a line of poetry. In darkness we stumble, in light we see. He stares at it, his fingers tracing her handwriting. Inside he's a mess, he thinks. I've built an empire, controlled every piece of my life, but her, she's chaos. She's in my head, my veins, and I don't want her to leave. I kissed her by mistake, and now I'm the one falling. He starts planning. He'll ask her out properly, somewhere away from the hotel, the crowds, the past. He doesn't know what this is, this pull he feels, but he's done fighting it. Ava Sullivan has undone him, and he's not sure he wants to be put back together. The rain taps the windows, a steady rhythm, and for the first time in years, Nathan feels alive. The rain hasn't stopped in New York, a constant drizzle that turns the city into a watercolor painting of gray and silver. Nathan Hayes sits in his office at Horizon Media, the top floor of a glass tower overlooking the skyline. Papers pile up on his desk, emails flood his inbox, but his mind is elsewhere. It's been 2 weeks since the blackout, since Ava Sullivan slipped into his life like a melody he can't shake. He's seen her almost every night at the Grand Meridian, their conversations growing longer, their glances lingering. She's become his escape, a quiet light in the storm of his world, he thinks. I've spent years chasing success, but now all I chase is the sound of her voice. Tonight, he's decided to take a step forward. He waits at the hotel bar, his usual spot, watching the clock. Ava's shift ends at 10, and he's planned something different. When she emerges from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, he stands. She spots him, her hazel eyes softening. You again, she says, her tone playful. Don't you ever get tired of this place? Nathan smiles, a rare, genuine curve of his lips. Not when you're here, he replies. She blushes, looking away, but he catches the flicker of warmth in her expression. Walk with me, he says, nodding toward the door. It's raining, but I've got an umbrella. Ava hesitates, then nods. She grabs her coat, a worn gray thing that barely keeps out the chill, and follows him outside. The umbrella opens with a snap, and they step into the night. The rain patters above them, a soft percussion as they walk down the quiet street. Nathan holds the umbrella high, keeping her dry, though his shoulder gets soaked. She notices, laughing quietly. You're terrible at this, she says, nudging him. You're the one getting wet. He shrugs, grinning. Worth it, he says, and her laughter fades into a shy smile. They wander past closed shops and flickering streetlights, the city hushed under the storm. Ava talks about the rain, how it calms her, how she writes poetry when it falls. It's like the world slows down, she says, her voice soft. I can hear my thoughts. Nathan listens, captivated by her words. He's never been one for poetry, but the way she speaks makes him want to learn. What about you? She asks, glancing up at him. What do you hear in the rain? He pauses, caught off guard. I used to hear chaos, he admits. Deadlines, pressure. Now, I hear you. Her eyes widen and she looks down, her fingers twisting the hem of her coat. They stop in a narrow alley, the rain louder here, bouncing off the brick walls. Nathan lowers the umbrella slightly, their faces close. He can see the droplets clinging to her lashes, the faint freckles across her nose. Ava, he says, his voice low. That night, in the blackout, I thought I was kissing someone else. But when the lights came on, I saw you, and I haven't been the same since. She meets his gaze, her breath catching. Nathan, she whispers, I'm just a server. You're you. This doesn't make sense. He steps closer, his hand finding hers. It doesn't have to, he says. I just know I want you here with me. Her fingers tighten around his, and for a moment they stand there, the rain a curtain around them. He thinks, I've built walls so high no one could climb them. But she's not climbing, she's tearing them down. And I'm letting her. Ava pulls back slightly, her voice trembling. I don't know what this is, she says, but I feel it too. Nathan's heart leaps, a rush he hasn't felt in years. He lifts her hand, pressing it to his chest. Then let's find out, he says. She nods, and they walk on, the silence between them electric. Days turn into weeks, and their connection deepens. Nathan starts leaving work early, trading board meetings for quiet moments with Ava. One night at the hotel, she brings him a coffee and slips him a napkin. On it, a poem. Shadows dance where light once stood. A kiss to wake what never should. He reads it, his throat tight. You wrote this? He asks. She nods, nervous. About that night, she says. He folds the napkin carefully, tucking it into his pocket. It's beautiful, he says. You're beautiful. She ducks her head, but he sees her smile. Another evening, they sit on a bench in Central Park. The rain light now, a mist around them. Ava pulls out a small notebook, reading him a poem about a bird lost in a storm. Her voice is steady, passionate, and Nathan watches her, mesmerized. When she finishes, he takes her hand. You should share this, he says. The world needs to hear you. She shakes her head. It's just for me, she says. And now for you. He leans closer, his forehead brushing hers. Then I'm the luckiest man alive, he whispers. She doesn't pull away, and he feels her breath against his lips, a promise unspoken. Their closeness grows physical too, small touches that carry weight. His hand on her back as they cross a street, her fingers brushing his when she hands him a drink. One night, outside the hotel, he walks her to the subway. The rain picks up, and they duck under an awning. She shivers and he pulls off his coat, draping it over her shoulders. You'll freeze, she protests. He grins. I've got you to keep me warm, he says, and she laughs, stepping into his arms. They hold each other, the rain a steady hum, and Nathan thinks, this is what I've been missing. Not power, not wealth, but her. Inside, Ava wrestles with her feelings. She sits in her tiny apartment later that night, the rain tapping her window. She thinks, he's everything I'm not. Rich, powerful, sure of himself. I'm a dreamer with nothing to offer. But when he looks at me, I feel seen. That kiss in the dark, it was a mistake, but it's rewriting my heart. She wants to trust this, to let herself fall, but doubt lingers. She's a server. He's a CEO. The gap between them feels vast, a canyon she's afraid to cross. Nathan, back in his penthouse, stares at the city lights blurred by rain. He thinks, I've controlled every piece of my life, built an empire from nothing, but Ava, she's beyond my reach, and that's why I need her. I kissed her by accident, and now I'm choosing her every day. He remembers her poem, her voice, the way she fits against him. He's falling hard and fast, and he doesn't care. He wants more, not just stolen moments, but a life with her. He decides to tell her, to lay it all bare. The rain falls, and with it, his walls crumble completely. The rain in New York has softened to a drizzle, but the air feels heavy tonight. Nathan Hayes sits in his office at Horizon Media, the city lights reflecting off the glass walls. It's late, past midnight, and he should be home, but his mind is restless. Ava Sullivan has woven herself into his every thought, her laughter, her poetry, the way she looks at him like he's more than a title. They've spent weeks building something fragile and beautiful, and he's ready to make it real. He's planned to take her away this weekend, a quiet cabin upstate, just the two of them. He thinks, I've never wanted anything as much as I want her. She's my calm in the chaos, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep her. His phone buzzes, snapping him out of his reverie. A text from Isabella Reed, his ex, lights up the screen. We need to talk, now. Meet me at the hotel. Nathan frowns, irritation flaring. Isabella walked out of his life 3 years ago, chasing someone richer, and he's had no interest in looking back. He types a curt reply. Busy. But another message follows. It's about her, the girl from the blackout. His stomach twists. How does she know about Ava? He grabs his coat and heads out, the rain a faint mist on his face as he drives to the Grand Meridian. At the hotel, Isabella waits in the lobby, her blonde hair sleek, her red dress sharp against the muted decor. She's as striking as ever, but Nathan feels nothing, only unease. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice clipped. She smiles, a cold, calculated curve of her lips. "You've been busy, Nathan," she says, stepping closer, chasing that little server girl. "Ava, right?" He stiffens, his jaw tight. "Leave her out of this," he says. Isabella laughs, sharp and bitter. "Oh, I can't. See, that night in the blackout, you were supposed to kiss me. I was there, waiting, but you found her instead, and now I hear you're smitten." Nathan stares at her, disbelief rising. "You're delusional," he says. "I haven't wanted you in years." Isabella's eyes narrow. "Maybe," she says, "but I don't like being replaced by a nobody, so I fixed it." She pulls out her phone, showing him a photo. Ava, standing outside the hotel, laughing with him under the awning. "I've been watching," she says, "and I've made sure she knows the truth." Nathan's blood runs cold. "What did you do?" he demands. Isabella smirks. "Sent her a little message from you." Before he can respond, his phone rings. It's Ava. He answers, his heart pounding. "Nathan," she says, her voice trembling. "Did you mean it? What you said?" He frowns, confused. "Ava, what are you talking about?" She chokes back a sob. "The text. You said it was a mistake. That you're still in love with her, with Isabella." Nathan's grip tightens on the phone. "I didn't send that," he says, turning to glare at Isabella. "Where are you?" Ava hesitates. "Outside the hotel," she says. "I needed to see you." The call cuts off. Nathan pushes past Isabella, ignoring her protests, and runs outside. The rain has picked up, a steady fall now, soaking his suit. He spots Ava across the street, her coat drenched, her face pale under the streetlight. She sees him and stops, her eyes red from crying. "Ava," he calls, crossing to her. She steps back, shaking her head. "Don't," she says. "I got your message. I should have known." He reaches for her, desperate. "It wasn't me," he says. "Isabella sent it. She's trying to ruin this." Ava looks at him, doubt clouding her gaze. "Why would she?" she asks. "What am I to her?" Nathan takes her hands, holding them despite her resistance. "You're everything to me," he says. "She's jealous, Ava. She can't stand that I've moved on, that I found you." Ava pulls away, her voice breaking. "Found me? Nathan, I'm not someone you find. I'm just a server. You're a CEO. This was never real." He steps closer, rain dripping from his hair. "It's the realest thing I've ever had," he says. "I don't care who you are on paper. I care who you are to me." She shakes her head, tears mixing with the rain. "I can't do this," she says. "I'm not enough for your world." She turns to leave, and Nathan's chest aches. He thinks, "I've lost her. I've fought for everything in my life, but I can't fight her fear. Isabella's won." He watches her disappear into the night, the rain swallowing her figure. Back inside, Isabella waits, triumphant. "She's gone," she says. "You're better off." Nathan rounds on her, fury in his eyes. "You don't get to decide that," he snaps. "Stay out of my life." He storms out, the rain a roar in his ears, but his mind is on Ava. He needs to fix this, but he doesn't know how. The next day, Ava doesn't show up at the hotel. Nathan waits, his coffee untouched, his hope fading. He asks the staff, but they say she called in sick. He drives to her apartment, a small building in Brooklyn, and knocks. No answer. He slides a note under her door. "Ava, it's me. Please talk to me." He waits outside, rain soaking him again, but she doesn't come. Inside, Ava sits on her bed staring at the note, her heart torn. She thinks, he says it wasn't him, but what if it's true? What if I'm just a game to them both? I felt so safe with him, and Now, I'm breaking. Days pass, and Nathan buries himself in work, but it's hollow. He finds a napkin in his coat pocket, one of Ava's poems, "In shadows we trust, in light we break." He clutches it, his resolve hardening, then a twist. Cleaning his desk, he finds another note, slipped there unnoticed. It's from Ava, written in her careful hand. "I was there, Nathan, in the dark. It was me you kissed, not her." His breath catches. It's proof. Her truth against Isabella's lies. But there's more. A second page he hadn't seen. "She came to me, offered me money to leave you. I said no." Nathan stares at the words, realization crashing over him. Isabella didn't just send a text. She tried to buy Ava off, and Ava refused. He thinks, "She fought for us even when I didn't. I've been a fool letting her slip away. I thought I'd lost her to my past, but she's stronger than I knew." He grabs his keys, determination burning. He's going to find her no matter what it takes. The rain falls harder outside, but he doesn't care. Ava's worth it, worth everything. He's not letting Isabella win, not letting doubt steal what they've built. He's going to get her back. The rain pours over New York, a relentless curtain that blurs the city into shades of gray. Nathan Hayes drives through the storm, his hands tight on the wheel, the note from Ava crumpled in his pocket. Her words echo in his mind. "I was there, Nathan. It was me you kissed, not her." And then the revelation that Isabella tried to pay her to leave, and Ava refused. He's been blind, letting doubt and Isabella's schemes tear them apart. Now he knows the truth. Ava fought for him, even when he faltered. He thinks, "I've spent days drowning in my own mistakes, but she's my lifeline. I'm not losing her again." He heads for Central Park, a hunch pulling him there. It's where they sat weeks ago, where she read him her poetry under the mist. If she's anywhere, it's there, seeking the rain she loves. The streets are slick, headlights reflecting off wet pavement, but he doesn't slow down. He parks near the entrance, grabs his umbrella, and steps into the downpour. The park is empty, trees swaying in the wind, benches glistening. He walks deeper, his shoes sinking into the mud, until he sees her. Ava Sullivan stands by the lake, her coat soaked, her hair plastered to her face. She's staring at the water, lost in thought. "Ava," he calls, his voice cutting through the rain. She turns, startled, her hazel eyes wide. For a moment she looks ready to run, but he closes the distance fast. "Wait," he says, breathless. "Please." She hugs herself, shivering. "Nathan, what are you doing here?" she asks, her voice small against the storm. He pulls the note from his pocket, holding it up. "This," he says. "I found it. All of it. What you wrote, what Isabella did. I know everything." Ava's gaze drops, her lips trembling. "I didn't want you to," she says. "I just wanted you to believe me." Nathan steps closer, the umbrella forgotten, rain drenching him too. "I do," he says. "I was an idiot, Ava. I let her get in my head, let her make you doubt me, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving." She shakes her head, tears mixing with the rain. "You don't get it," she says. "I'm scared, Nathan, scared you'll wake up one day and see I don't fit in your life, that I'm just a moment, not a forever." Her words hit him hard, but he doesn't flinch. He takes her face in his hands, gentle but firm, forcing her to look at him. "You're not a moment," he says, his voice steady. "You're everything. That night in the blackout, I kissed you by mistake, but it wasn't chance, it was fate. And every day since, I've chosen you." She searches his eyes, her breath hitching. "What if I'm not enough?" she whispers. He shakes his head, rain dripping from his hair. "You're more than enough." She trembles, and he pulls her closer, his forehead against hers. "I love you," he says, the words raw and true. "I've loved you since that kiss, and I'll love you every day after." Ava gasps, her hands clutching his soaked shirt. "Nathan," she says, her voice breaking, "I thought I'd lose you. When I got that text when she came to me, I thought you'd go back to her." He pulls back just enough to meet her gaze. "Never," he says. "Isabella's nothing to me. You're my heart." He reaches into his pocket again, pulling out her poem from the blackout night. "Listen," he says, and he reads aloud, his voice rising over the rain. "Shadows dance where light once stood, a kiss to wake what never should. If darkness is where I found you, then I'll live in the night to keep you close." She stares at him, tears streaming down her face. "You kept it," she says, "all this time." He nods, folding the paper back. "It's you, Ava, every word. I'm not letting you go." She steps into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, and he holds her tight, the rain pounding around them. "I love you too," she whispers against his ear. "I was so afraid, but I love you." The words break something in him. A wall he didn't know still stood. He pulls back, cups her face, and kisses her. This kiss is different, not a mistake in the dark, but a choice in the storm. Her lips are cold from the rain, but warm with her, and he pours everything into it, his regret, his hope, his love. She kisses him back, fierce and tender, her fingers tangling in his wet hair. Thunder rumbles overhead, but they don't care. The world fades, leaving only them, locked together under the sky. When they part, breathless, she smiles, a real, radiant smile that lights up the night. "You're crazy," she says, laughing through her tears. "Coming out here in this?" He grins, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "For you, I'd walk through a hurricane." They stand there, soaked and shivering, but neither moves. Nathan thinks, this is it. The moment I've been running toward since the lights went out. She's mine, and I'm hers, and nothing else matters. Ava rests her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat through the rain. She thinks, I was so sure I'd fade away, that he'd forget me when the lights came back. But he's here, and he's real, and I'm not letting go. The storm rages on, but between them, there's peace. A quiet promise, sealed with a kiss. The rain has eased in New York, a gentle patter now, leaving the city fresh and quiet. Nathan Hayes and Ava Sullivan sit in a small cafe near Central Park, a week after their reunion in the storm. The window beside them is streaked with droplets, the world outside a blur of soft lights. They share a table, a single candle flickering between them, casting a warm glow on their faces. Ava's notebook lies open, her pen resting on a half-finished poem. Nathan holds a coffee mug, his fingers brushing hers as they reach for the same sugar packet. She laughs, a sound that's become his favorite, and he smiles, a peace in his eyes he hasn't known in years. They've spent the days since the park rebuilding what almost broke. Nathan took her to that cabin upstate, a weekend of quiet talks and shared silences, the rain their constant companion. Now, back in the city, they're finding a rhythm. He's still the CEO of Horizon Media, but he leaves work early for her. She's still a server, but she's started reading her poetry at open mic nights, his voice the loudest cheering her on. Tonight they're writing together, a poem about them. Ava scribbles a line, "In rain we mend, in love we stay." Nathan reads it, nodding. "Perfect," he says, and she beams. He watches her, the way her hair catches the light, the way her hazel eyes soften when she looks at him. He thinks, this is my life now. Not the boardroom, not the headlines, but her. A kiss in the dark led me here, and I'd do it all again. Ava glances up, catching his stare. "What?" she asks, teasing. "You're looking at me like I'm a poem." He leans closer, his voice low. "You are," he says, "the best one I've ever read." She blushes, resting her chin on her hand. "You're not so bad yourself," she says, and they laugh, the sound mingling with the rain. Later, as they leave, Nathan pulls her close under the awning. The rain taps above them, a familiar music. Ava looks out, her voice soft. She thinks, love is like this rain, unexpected and fierce, but gentle too. It found me in the dark, and I'll hold it forever. She turns to him, smiling. "Thank you," she says, "for not forgetting me." He kisses her forehead. "Never," he says. They step into the night, hand in hand, the rain a blessing on their new beginning. And to you, the listeners of Emma Stories, thank you for sharing Nathan and Ava's journey. Tell us your own love stories, the ones that started with a moment you'll never forget.